Still wrong.
You were a UCLA graduate.
Class of 1994.
And what was your major?
English.
Oh. And how did you come to be writing the history book of UCLA?
I had heard that they were looking for an author to chronicle the history of UCLA, and just prior to that, I had been working at UCLA Magazine. I have a background as a journalist, and I had the privilege of meeting with Pioneer Bruins, which is the nickname that we dubbed for all our first alumni that attended the Vermont Avenue campus near downtown, and spent the day with them and really became enthralled with their stories and walked the campus with them through their eyes and just became very inspired by the history of UCLA. And although I was here a student for many years, I had never really stopped to think about the history. I was always thinking about the day-to-day, present time, rushing to graduate, working at the Bruin, and I just knew that that is something that I really wanted to do.
Nice. And when did UCLA start? What should we trace to the beginning time of UCLA?
I start the book in 1913, and many people would have different opinions on this, but you could trace it all the way back to the beginning of the University of California. UCLA was started on the grounds of the Normal School of Los Angeles, and I started in 1913 because Edward A. Dixon, the regent who was appointed and really helped work behind the scenes to create UCLA, started to push for creating a public university in Los Angeles at that time.
He was a civic leader in Los Angeles?
He was a civic leader, he was a journalist, and then he also owned the Los Angeles Evening Express, which he used to promote his cause, but he also was very well connected politically.
So it really was his idea to create a southern branch of the University of California?
He did want a public university. He was approached very early on after he was appointed by a group of representatives from Los Angeles, citizens, civic leaders, teachers, PTA leaders, and they approached him and said, we really need a public institution in Los Angeles. At the time, there was only the University of California in Berkeley, which was some 400 miles away. USC, of course, was a private school. It was there. There were a number of other private schools, but no public institution.
What were the first buildings at UCLA?
The first building, the first four buildings, which is the what we know as the Royce Quad informally, and consisted of Royce, which was the earliest administration building at the time, but it was also with the auditorium. It was the library, which didn't have a name. It came to be called Powell Library later, after Lawrence Clark Powell. Also Haynes Hall, which was at the time the chemistry building, and then the fourth one, which most alum will know as Kinsey, although now it's called the Humanities Building. And at that time it was the biology, physics building. So those four were built in this great Romanesque style.
And what was the style emulating? How did they arrive at this style?
They considered many styles. They considered Spanish style first, Mediterranean style, but thought that that was too passé, that it was too common. And then the Vermont Avenue campus was also designed, it was designed by Allison, or David Allison, and that setting and the setting of the rolling hills of Westwood seemed to match remind people of Italy and that Romanesque style, and also it was something that was considered beautiful and impressive, something unique. And there is a wonderful picture of Royce Hall in the book, where you see a Royce Hall rising in the middle of nowhere with mountains in the background, and it's just this most majestic, beautiful building.
And I guess originally, and this would be a surprise to some people on campus today, it was put here partly because you had a great ocean view, right, from the hill where
yes,
where
it's hard to believe that today, but you could actually see from all the way from the campus to the Pacific Ocean. And today, if you get to Hedrick Hall, you can see the downtown actually looking the other way. But the dorms were built in the late 50s and 60s, did block a lot of that view, as well as the construction to the ocean.
Yeah, okay. What was the first structure they had to build to begin construction here at UCLA?
The first structure, this is often one of our fun trivia questions because it wasn't a building, it was the Arroyo Bridge, which crossed over the deep ravine that extended from Hillgard to to where the quad starts now. And so that structure was built, and the governor came down to dedicate it, and it's hard to imagine it. And there was a lot of wildlife in that area.
Let's talk about your work on the book. You worked on the book for how long?
I've worked on the book for 8 years, researching, writing, scouring for every tidbit that I could find. I spent many weeks at Berkeley because, surprisingly to me, I did not realize this when I started, much of the early history of UCLA is retained by Berkeley. And I also went to the Regent's office. Everybody has been wonderfully supportive of this project and given me quite a bit of access that has helped me create a context that I otherwise would not have been able to do.